Welcome back to the Explainer. So glad you're here, because today we are exploring a truly crucial yet incredibly overlooked intersection in the body art world. We're looking at the exact point where advanced polymer science meets daily piercing safety. We're going to look closely at the materials interacting with human tissue in studios every single day. If you care about the deep mechanics of what actually makes an implant-adjacent material safe, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get right into it. So, are all flexible piercing plastics just interchangeable? For years, there has been this really dangerous industry-wide assumption that flexible plastic is just a single generic category. Like, if it bends, it's all the same, right? No way. Absolutely not. This misconception is quietly raising migration and irritation risks in fresh piercings all over the world. When we treat entirely different chemical structures as simple equivalents, we are literally gambling with tissue response. Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The flexible plastic myth. 2. Polymer science and the chemistry divide. 3. Studio performance and safety. And finally, 4. Matching material to anatomy. Let's get going. Kicking things off with Section 1, the flexible plastic myth. You know, in a lot of studio supply chains, trade descriptions commonly lump chemically distinct materials together under one big umbrella term. They just call it all flexible jewelry. But doing this completely ignores their clinical differences, and, more importantly, how they react when exposed to the human body for extended periods of time. Which brings us to the biggest takeaway here. BioFlex and bioplast are not soft urethane elastomers. They get lumped in with soft TPU all the time. But actually, scratch that, it's a massive mistake. Brands like BioFlex and bioplast are actually semi-rigid medical polyolefins. When we treat them like soft TPU, we're totally ignoring how differently they respond to sterilization, mechanical load, and prolonged tissue contact. Moving right along to Section 2, Polymer Science, the Chemistry Divide. To really get why this matters, we've got to zoom in on the molecular level to uncover exactly why these materials behave so incredibly differently when they're placed inside a human tissue. Let's look at the actual polymer science behind BioFlex and bioplast. They're made of PPR, or polypropylene random copolymer. Down at the molecular level, PPR features a nonpolar polyolefin backbone with high crystallinity. But what does that actually mean for you? Well, it gives the material a shape-stable bendability rather than a rubbery stretch. It's a semi-rigid thermoplastic. Think of it kind of like a heavy-duty zip tie, or maybe a flexible fishing rod. It curves nicely, but it absolutely won't stretch out like a rubber band. Now, compare that PPR chemistry over to TPU, which is thermoplastic polyurethane. This is a completely different chemical family. TPU is a segmented elastomer. It's literally built from alternating soft polyether or polyester segments and hard urethane linkages. This specific structure is what gives TPU its rubber-like elasticity, really high tear strength, and way higher segmental mobility than PPR. Sure, they might both be non-metal and flexible, but chemically speaking, they are worlds apart. So how do we actually get that specific PPR behavior? It all comes down to this tiny number, 1 to 4%. During production, if you insert just 1 to 4% of ethylene or other alpha olefins randomly into the polypropylene chain, it changes the whole shebang. This random insertion drops the material's crystallinity and its melting point, but at the same time it boosts clarity, impact resistance, and long-term hydrostatic pressure resistance. That right there is the polymer science magic making PPR so incredibly durable and shape-stable. Let's anchor all this heavy science back to studio reality. Thanks to that nonpolar backbone and high crystallinity we just looked at, PPR has a very specific biocompatibility profile. It's built on USP Class V base resins and tested to ISO 1099-36 for tissue implantation. Ultimately, this gives PPR a remarkably low extractable profile, meaning there is a very low risk of chemical additives migrating out of the plastic and into the body. It's highly suitable for implant-adjacent applications. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Studio Performance and Safety. Let's step out of the microchemistry for a second and look at how these properties actually dictate daily performance when you're dealing with sterilizers, jewelry insertion, and long-term wear. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is the stark difference in sterilization capabilities. PPR's semi-rigid, shape-stable stems can actually handle ETO, low-temperature gas, and even carefully selected short steam cycles if the melt temperature allows. But look over at TPU. While many TPUs handle ETO and gamma just fine, steam sterilization is super risky.
Because of that segmented structure we talked about, TPU's soft network can deform and it's highly prone to soft segment hydrolysis under the intense heat and moisture of a steam autoclave. And that brings us to a really high-stakes comparison, extractables and leachables. Since PPR has that nonpolar backbone and absolutely zero plasticizers, its extractables are super low. TPU, though, it has a much softer, more open network. That means there's a higher mobility for plasticizers, processing aids, and residual monomers to migrate right out of the material. For long-term implant-adjacent use, especially in a warm, moist human body, TPU absolutely requires thorough, grade-specific leachables testing. This brilliantly illustrates why we can't just stop the conversation at PPR and TPU. Let's quickly bring silicone and PTFE into the mix. Silicone offers amazing soft tissue conformity, sure, but uncertified grades carry major risks for surface biofilm and filler leachables. And PTFE? It's incredibly inert with basically zero extractables, which sounds perfect, right? Well, mechanically, it suffers from creep, cold flow, and really poor thread stability. The jewelry can literally warp out of shape over time. The main takeaway here is that every single chemistry carries distinct long-term tissue responses and mechanical risks. Flexible is never just a single category. All right, on to Section 4, matching material to anatomy. Now that the chemistry divide is crystal clear, let's pivot to precision application. We need to see exactly how practitioners should deploy these specific chemistries based on anatomy and healing stages. So the crucial point is, where does PPR actually belong? Its sweet spot is definitely in healed channels. We're talking healed nostrils, lips, and cartilage. These are the exact spots where you want a subtle, shape-stable flex alongside those ultra-low extractables we mentioned. PPR is perfect for scenarios needing low friction and low migration. Or, say you have a client needing non-metal jewelry for a workplace or medical imaging appointment, but you want to completely avoid the mechanical warping of PTFE. PPR is your go-to. But what about the soft TPUs? Well, soft TPU's high elasticity makes it a rock star for short-term conformity. It's a fantastic comfort device to prevent temporary mechanical trauma in high-movement areas like oral or nostril piercings. But, and this is a massive but, its use must be strictly time-limited. Because of the potential for leachables in that open polymer network, TPU should absolutely never be your default for long-term implant-adjacent jewelry unless you literally have the exact, grade-specific medical certification in your hand. This helps us build our rules for the most critical situations, fresh piercings. For fresh, high-risk anatomy, like a fresh navel, nipple, genital, or deep cartilage piercing, the absolute #1 priority is controlling trauma and biofilm. This means relying on metals with established implant records, or PTFE. Flexible non-metals like PPR should really only be used in these environments if channel stability, swelling predictability, and the resin's exact medical certification are absolutely locked in and certain. I want to share this really poignant observation from Patrick, an expert with 3 decades of sourcing experience. He notes, when suppliers mislabel BioFlex as a TPU, piercers lose the ability to choose intentionally. They don't know whether they're dealing with a semi-rigid polyolefin that's ISO 10936 certified or a soft elastomer. This mislabeling literally destroys a studio's operational reality. It ends up pushing flexible jewelry into fresh, high-risk anatomy, where a completely different chemistry would have been infinitely safer for the client. So how do we actually fix this? Here are your actionable steps moving forward. Step 1, visually and mentally separate PPR, TPU, silicone, and PTFE in your inventory. They are simply not the same. Step 2, verify those ISO 10936 or USP Class V credentials. Know exactly what you're holding. And step 3, actively match the material class to the anatomy, the client's biology, and the procedure type. We have to start treating these medical elastomers as the precision polymer science tools they are, rather than tossing them into some generic plastic is plastic bucket. Which leaves us with one final thought for today's explainer. Take a hard look at your own setup, or even your favorite studio setup, and ask yourself, are you treating flexible elastomers as precision tools, or are you still gambling on generic plastics? Understanding this chemistry divide is no longer optional. It is the absolute foundation of modern, safe piercing practice. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.